Blog Talk Radio. Welcome to Women Who Rock Investigates, an affiliate of Women Who Rock with Success. We report case studies in the areas of policy and government, medical malpractices, health pandemics, biotech and fracking, global climate change, prison, and police reform, and more. Our topics are covered around the latest breaking news reports in the U.S. and around the globe. We can be heard on Spotify, Google Play, Google Podcast, TuneIn, iTunes, Podbean, Airtime Pro, and SAM Broadcasting radio stations, and more. Our handpicked experts on the show provide credible information from their fields of experience. Join us on Thursdays at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time as we discover the latest in news reports. Now join us live in the studio with our show host, Mrs. Diane Winbush.
And good morning and welcome to Women Who Rock Investigates. This is a case study podcast where we deliver breaking news. We deliver the latest news that is going on in America and around the globe. And also individuals are looking for answers. And so the podcast helps individuals to understand a lot of the different aspects of what's going on, and we try to go in and pick the best experts to be able to help us in that area. And so today we're going to be talking about power of attorney rights and advance directives. This is something that individuals perhaps maybe push behind the wall or behind the couch or what have you. And so individuals may not speak and talk about it a whole lot. So this topic has came up in our audience a whole lot because individuals are wanting to know the answers for a power of attorney rights. So we're going to go ahead and get started, and we're going to ask who's on the line today. Good morning.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, I can. Okay, so is this
Hi.
Rebecca or Laura? Okay,
this
Rebecca.
is Rebecca.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, thank you so much for joining us and being a part with us on the day to be able to share your expertise and resources in this area. So before we get started on the topic, we want the audience to learn a little bit about you. That kind of gets them comfortable a little bit, and then you can be able to kind of entwine with them as well as to help them to learn a little bit more about you and your practice and why you got into the practice of law. So you can do that at this time.
Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Rebecca Goldfarb, and at 12 years old, I knew I wanted to be a lawyer. I had no idea how, but I knew I wanted to help people. So it's been a long time. I'm 51 now. But I started the firm with my best friend in 2008, and we picked estate planning and elder law because it would feed our souls. It would make it so that we could help people, prevent them from going to court, help them through difficult times, and have lifelong relationships with them and their families.
Okay, great. That's awesome. So we're gonna identify a couple of things for the audience and for the other potential audiences that may be listening after the show. And so we wanted to be able to share with the audience what is a power of attorney.
So because California is a little bit unique, I'm going to talk both about California and as much as I know in general. It's a very state-specific law. But a durable power of attorney is essentially a form document or an attorney-drafted document that you give someone else the power to make certain decisions for you. So it can be general, where you have you can do all sorts of things by standing in the shoes of someone else. Essentially, you're doing it on their behalf to make all legal and financial decisions. Or it could be very specified that it's a limited power of attorney and you can only do certain things. So say someone is traveling a lot and they just want you to handle, one rental property that's in your name. Then you can very severely limit it, or it could be general. But the difference between durable and where it just could be a power of attorney is durable extends if you become incapacitated. So on the elder law side of our firm, that's critically important, because otherwise you're headed to conservatorship if you don't have a durable power of attorney. So that's kind of the big picture. I have a lot more that I could go into, but that's the big picture of what a power of attorney is. So it's for legal and financial decisions. Typically, when you become incapacitated, you need someone to step in your shoes, but it could be for some limited, purpose as well.
Okay. And so this is another question. Some of the questions may be just a little, I don't know, I guess driving up a bumpy road. I guess I wanted to be able to I guess put that out there in quotations or what have you, because as I stated, the show is actually directed for the breaking news, for the latest, and then a lot of times individuals, they'll come to us because they have a lot of questions and what have you, and so that's what we're here for. We're here to provide the answers. So like I said, there was a big convulsion that came up over a professional group that was on social media, and so another question that we were like, and that's the reason why I had the show. I said, okay, then,
wow,
we got this big, huge kerfuffle that's going on, so let's do the show and find out actually what the facts are, because individuals may not know, and also it may differ from state to state. And so, so one of the questions and one of the issues were that sometimes banks are traditional, just like you may have some, certain banks that are national, like Bank of America, Regions, and what have you, or Chase Bank. But then you have some individuals that live in maybe a smaller metropolitan area or geographical location that may have, the home-based bank, where everybody goes to it, and it's been there probably for about 3 or 4 centuries and what have you. And some of them do not comply. Some of them may not comply to the law, or they're behind in the law. So that's another question I think that came up, was who can reject a power of attorney, because some banks will, if they're behind the law, they will reject, look, I'm here to cash this person's financial statement, but our bank does not have the bylaws to be able to back that up. And so that's the next question that I would like to ask, as to why would a bank, well, no, that's not the question. Who can reject the power of attorney document if it's presented? We're going to use the bank as an example, because that was one of the issues that came up as to why some banks reject it and why do some banks comply to the law.
So it's a very interesting question. So much has changed since 9/11, I feel, where you could kind of get by before that. And since 9/11 and since all these mergers of these huge banks, it really changed the landscape of the power of attorney, and it is critical. So people will often say, I'm just doing it for my spouse. We can just handle each other's affairs, right? And that's not the case at all. So essentially, once you turn 18, no one can make decisions for you. So your 18-year-olds need a power of attorney, right? And you need one for your spouse. If you're taking care of a parent, you need one. When it comes to these financial institutions, you are absolutely right. They all have their own rules, and it drives us crazy as attorneys because the state law governs them. And so really, and this is very sad to say, but if you have a lawyer, the lawyer is going to duke it out and the lawyer is going to win because the state law is behind us. But the financial institution or their, the teller, or if it's a small bank or a manager, the legal department in big banks, we have to duke this out sometimes. Now, there are some things that are changing a little bit. And one thing that has come up even before COVID, but things have changed even with COVID, and I don't understand in certain ways why, but they're not accepting co-agency. So a lot of people will say, I want my 2 kids to do this together. And they go to Chase or they go to B of A, those are, your big bank examples, and they won't honor it. And it's legally okay, but they won't honor it. And so we have to duke it out with them. And in the end, we've won when this has come up, but it's very expensive for the client. So I am telling clients now, do not do co-agency, both on your power of attorney and on in your trust for co-trustees. Do one and then the other so that we prevent these problems. Plus, it's actually easier for the person who's trying to help not to have to do it with someone. That can be logistically difficult, especially if they live in different places. So we're really looking at, I haven't, because I live in Los Angeles, I haven't come across, the tiny town bank problem where they're just saying, hey, we're not accepting it at all. But I have come into it where they've had different reasons not to accept it. It's too old, so we're not accepting it. Or it's got two agents, so we're not accepting it. And so we did have to go to court one time where it was two brothers, and the mom was 103, and she needed help from her son. The one son had died. And even with the death certificate of the deceased son, showing that it was the wording on it that wasn't clear enough for them. And so I think the best thing to do is to really regularly update these documents so you're not working from a document from the 70s, right? I mean, she was just particularly old, right? But so the laws do change. We have digital assets. Think of all of these online resources that we have now, and so we need to make sure that we regularly update them. But I would say if they're updated regularly and you don't have co-agency, then you might just have to find a lawyer to duke it out. And we like, fighting for people's rights against the big banks or small banks.
Absolutely. Okay, absolutely, because I had went into, I guess it was a bank that was jurisdictional. It was kind of, I don't know, maybe had 15 or 20 branches, but it was over maybe a 65 mile radius, and so that's small, and when I went into the
definitely.
bank and that's small, and when I went into the bank and I was trying to open up a business account with the bank and versus, regions like, oh, come, you can come on in and do it over here. So I said, well, this is a little bit closer, and I have an account with them too. I had an account with both of them. And so the small jurisdiction financial institution, they didn't even know what the Articles of Incorporation was, the statement. You get it from the Secretary of State. And I'm like, wow, really? And you got all of these banks. And so that's the reason why I tried to. I'm serious. She got on the phone and she called someone else, and they was like, no. They said, well, they look at a business as being with the trustee secretary versus regions and Bank of America.
Wow.
They look at it, no, we'll let you come in as a sole proprietor and be able to enlist your business. And so that's the reason why I try to help individuals to understand that these banks, some of them are caught behind the law. They are behind. They have not caught up to today's views and what have you. And so, of course, I could have stood there and went back with her over and over and over for the next 40 years, but I would never. And she was a young lady. That's the reason why I was so shocked. I'm like, you're young. You should know better. I said, you've never. She came in with this document. That's what she was saying. And so that's the reason why I try to help individuals to understand that laws do change, policies do change. Yep. Some people do not. They have certain bylaws within their corporation, Articles of Incorporation, where it's like, I'm going to stay right here, I'm not going to move, and then someone else come in with something. They think it's contagious, like a pandemic. I'm like, you're looking at this document like you're not aware of what it is. And so I said, okay, let's go to another bank that will honor exactly what I'm trying to ask them for, and it was no problem. It was no problem. I just was able to go right in. And so that's the reason why I brought that up. So this is the next thing that we would like to talk about, Rebecca, and this is the rights of a power of attorney and how much rights does the next of kin have. So I'm going to bring up a scenario which happened actually in true to life. So this was this older lady. And so what she never did have like a long-lasting relationship with her father. I think she was like 60-something years old, and her father probably was about 80 or 90-something. And so what happened was the father went in there and put a power of attorney in place for the caregiver that was taking care of him. But the daughter that was up in age too, 60-something, or maybe she may have been 70, she went in and said, okay, it doesn't matter if I never gave my father a drink of water. Keep in mind, this is in a small jurisdictional area. I don't care if I haven't given him a drink of water or supported him or given, was there with him at the end of life. I'm his daughter. I'm his next of kin, and I have the rights to all of his possessions. So what she did was she went and hired an attorney, even though the father had left this individual. I don't know if it was through word of mouth, but I think it was through a document. And don't you know that the judge overturned the power of attorney's rights and gave it over to the next of kin, the daughter? And so we want to talk about that, if that's something that you can be able to relate to, or to be able to explain it to the audience as to, and people were confused, trust me, in the courtroom. People were totally confused because he had it on paper, but due to the next of kin, the judge overruled the power of attorney. So if you have had any experience with that, we would love for you to be able to share that with the audience, if you could.
Do you know what state this was in?
Tennessee.
Okay. So it is true that every state has their own rules about this, but what is confusing to me about that scenario is that when we have mental capacity, and for power of attorney and the Advance Directive, we need the highest level of capacity, which is contract capacity. So essentially, you know exactly what you're doing. You know what the short-term, long-term consequences are, pros and cons, all of that, right? When we have that level of capacity, we can give it to whomever we want. So, yes, you can give it to a caregiver, you could give it to, an 18-year-old kid, you could give it to whomever, and you could bypass your next of kin, and there's nothing anyone can do about it. But when capacity is at question, right, then that's a different story. So once we lose capacity, and that's determined by a doctor and ultimately then a judge, right, not by the lawyer, not by a friend, not by your family member. But once we lose capacity, you can't do squat. And then the next of kin can petition for conservatorship. And that conservatorship process could be what happened within that, where the judge said that the parent didn't have mental capacity to create the document for the caregiver, for the power of attorney. And so then if you petition for conservatorship, that's a whole nasty process all by itself. But if that happens, the judge just takes your rights away and gives them to someone else. And that goes by next of kin, by relationship. So to a spouse first and then to children. And so what's so important is on the elder law side, we get capacity declarations all the time. When we create these documents, one, we want to make sure we're doing the right thing, right, that this person really knows what they're doing. But two, then when someone comes to question it later, we can be like, sorry, we've got this capacity declaration. And the other thing that has come up lately with that, I know there's a little segue, but it's so important for people to know, is that for reverse mortgages, and at least this is the case in California, if you want a reverse mortgage, let's say 20 years from now, and we create the power of attorney for you now, we need to show that when you created the power of attorney, you had mental capacity. So now, even for people who are like, I'm not getting a reverse mortgage, I'm like, let's just get the capacity declaration from your doctor. It's an easy form to fill out so that 20 years from now, if you want that, right, and we haven't updated your document, we can prove and you can get that reverse mortgage, because people are being denied the ability to get a reverse mortgage if they qualify in every other way because they can't prove they had capacity when they created the power of attorney.
Wow, that is actually, and I was sharing with this individual that works at a financial institution. In some cases, or perhaps maybe even some states, the power of attorney is looking more and more like a diploma. like you're getting your GED or something like that. I'm serious. It appears that it is losing its gravity as to who's in control. So this is going to lead me to the next question. I got a lot of questions for you, Rebecca, but we're going to try to sum this up in a few minutes. And so this is an actual. All of these scenarios are actual. So this was a news report. This is in Tennessee. This is where I'm from. I'm from the barbecue, buffalo, and cows, and agriculture, and what have you. So it was a news report. Sadly, this gentleman was trying to get the rights for his nephew. His nephew's father had passed away. It was just on the news the other day, and it was so sadly as to how this older man had to go through all of these loops and hoops in order for him to just get what was needed. So the son was not versed in the law as to how to obtain a death certificate, even though he was the power of attorney for his father's estate. They went to the health department. The health department rejected the son. The uncle was trying to help the son, who was the power of attorney. They also went to another agency, and he was rejected then. They had to, the uncle, the older guy, had to go all the way to the news media in order to report it, in order for them to turn the death certificate over to the power of attorney. So, and that was so confusing to me. Why was that so difficult for the health department or whoever is responsible? Because they kept telling, what they do is they kept going back and forth. You go to the funeral home and to get it, the funeral home said, no, we can't give it to you right now until the health department releases some information in regards to his health conditions or something like that. And I don't understand what that had to do with anything of the death certificate, even though the son had the power of attorney over it. Just like I said, the power of attorney today is just like a GED. You have to fight for it.
So one thing for people to understand is that a power of attorney dies when you die. So there are no rights that you have in a power of attorney once someone dies. You might as well just shred it. It's nothing.
Wow.
So that could have been one issue. And I don't know what the probate code says in Tennessee, but in California, your next of kin has first right, and it goes all the way down to the very bottom is it's like A through K, and the very bottom is like a friend or a lawyer. Lawyers can do it on behalf of a deceased client. Or for a relative, for a deceased relative. But it does go in a certain order, and I'm sure Tennessee has the same order. Why the issue of power of attorney came up, I have no idea, because that doesn't have any impact whatsoever once you die. But in terms of the health department, the only thing I can think of is that in order for a funeral home to get the death certificate, the doctor has to sign off, and we have had delays in that. COVID delayed everything, but even before COVID, where the doctors hadn't determined the cause of death, or there was a question about the cause of death, and so an autopsy had to be done, and that can take a long time at the coroner's office. So I don't know about the Department of Health, but we have had delays because of the coroner's office. In terms of producing that. But it should just be by the probate code, next of kin go down the line. In terms of who has access.
Okay, that's fair enough. And perhaps maybe the gentleman, he was, like I said, he was an older guy, looked like he was about in his 70s. He had a walking cane and what have you. And perhaps maybe somebody may have became confused because he was, adding all of these other things in there, like the power of attorney, which perhaps maybe did not have anything to do with him obtaining the death certificate. So that kind of makes sense. And perhaps maybe that's the reason why he was having to go to different agencies, and they was kind of, maybe tossing him around,
running him back around,
over here. Exactly. So that kind of makes sense right there. So even with that, we're going to go to the probate court and what have you too, because this family who we're aware of, they have a state and what have you. And so, of course, when you're dealing with some attorneys in different states, they'll bumble you around as well. And so they'll tell you, oh, you got to go to family court, or you got to go to probate court. So kind of share with us the difference between family court and probate court, if you could.
So in probate court, we are dealing with conservatorships, or in some states they call it guardianships, which is essentially someone doesn't have capacity and the judge needs to appoint someone for medical decisions. That's conservatorship or guardian over the person. That replaces the Advance Directive. Or conservatorship over the estate is over the money, and that replaces the power of attorney. And so we do that. We do all probates. So someone has died without a trust or without the proper beneficiary designations, and so we end up in probate. And so that's essentially what we do. And then the family court is more divorce and all the issues that family lawyers deal with. And so the only crossover that can get messy is when there's a young child and there's a death and a divorce all at the same time. And so there's guardianship, but it's because someone has died, right? So we've handled those, like for a grandparent, let's say, and then there's a divorce, and so sometimes the family law lawyer and the probate lawyer will work together, but usually, God willing, they're separate.
Okay. That's great. And so this will be, the next question will be kind of going on the inside of an institution. So, of course, we have more leisure, leisure rights on the outside if we have power of attorney or someone has a power of attorney over us. So if a offender that's on the inside gives the right, with the durable power of attorney document, gives the right, and it's not even addressed, because I just keep going back to that word GED, because a lot of family members and loved ones have even went to institutions and presented. Okay, so this was the next conversation that came up in this particular platform that we were on, and it was regarding with the stimulus check. And I'm not for sure how the institution had the right to be able to send it back from the accounts receivable office back to the IRS if the family member, perhaps maybe had the power of attorney over the prisoner and mailed and sent it, to the institution and what have you. It was a lot that was going on, and I think that's the reason why, not trying to get political, but that's the reason why they had the Bureau of Prisoners. The head man, they had him on Capitol Hill. They really grilled him as to how things were going, behind bars and what have you, in regards to the prisoners and what they were going through and what have you. So we want to talk about that, if you could. I don't know if you've had a whole lot of experience with power of attorneys with offenders and their loved ones and what have you, but how effective is the document, even because they have to go through so many hoops, they have to go through so many jumps, and they will get ignored, the family member, and they will even get, kind of pushed away. Like I said, for the stimulus check, they have the accounts receivable have went in there and sent the money back to the IRS without, and I don't even know if they have the legal authority to be able to do that.
Oh, my God. This has never come up for me, but when you're talking about it, I just have goosebumps, because this is so wrong, and it must happen so often, not just stimulus check-wise, but just in general, when people are trying to advocate, for someone who's in prison. One thing that comes to mind is, a lot of people will want to do these do-it-yourself forms, and they don't understand, just like I don't understand their profession, right? They don't understand the consequences or ramifications of some of the choices in these forms. And so one thing that comes to mind is, these forms can either be springing or immediate, which means that in a power of attorney or an advance directive situation, the agent either has immediate power once the person signs the document, right? Or you have to wait to be deemed incapacitated by doctors. Sometimes it's 1, sometimes it's 2. The default in California, if it's not mentioned, is 2, but that's a state-by-state law. So making them immediately effective definitely makes it easier, and we have to be careful of this, but makes it easier for the really good person power of attorney, right, versus the bad guy power of attorney. We see those situations too, to be able to act on someone's behalf now, right? And so we don't have to go through doctors. We don't have to go through any of that. And so I would say that would be one really important thing. The other thing that comes to mind, and this affects everyone, whether it's prison or not, but it would be the same if you were in prison, is that every financial institution has their own power of attorney form. So let's say you have accounts, this probably isn't a prisoner situation, but let's say you have accounts at 4 different financial institutions. You have a Schwab here, you have Wells Fargo, you have Chase, whatever. You may have the power of attorney that's statutory, that is the free one that you can download from a government website, or you may have an attorney-drafted one, but you still have to go into that bank and you still have to fill out their specific power of attorney form in order to handle the accounts on behalf of someone. And so depending upon the situation, right, because there's a lot of people, unfortunately, we see this with elder abuse, who are creating these power of attorneys and they shouldn't, right? So we have to be really careful in the advice that we give. But just for people to know that you have your power of attorney, but unlike being able to sign a contract for someone, right, for a caregiver, let's say, right? And so you're saying, I'm going to sign on behalf of this person because they don't have capacity. When we go into financial institutions, we need to be mindful that we have to do it in advance and not wait till the last minute, right? So that we have the authority when we really need it to help someone. But I'm going to look into this because I'm curious now, specifically for prisoners. Are there things, right? Because, this is a real issue. And I think, most people in this situation, and I'm generalizing in a huge way, but a lot of people who are in prison, don't have the ability to afford, they can't work, right? So they don't have the ability to afford a lawyer, so they don't get presented to us. But from a human perspective, I don't care if you have money or not, you should have your legal rights protected, and you shouldn't be discriminated against because you're behind bars. So it's something I'm going to look into, and I'm going to email you what I find out.
Absolutely, because I am excited to kind of, and we know, and I don't want to use the word corrupt and things. What I feel that sometimes individuals may take advantage, or perhaps I feel also, Rebecca, that due to the COVID that was going on, it was a lot that was going on. They were having to separate individuals in certain areas of the facility and what have you, and then here comes this president, President Biden. He's granting the people, even behind bars, the opportunity to receive the stimulus checks, which he has all the right to do. But then I feel also that the accounts payable, the secretaries, all of them, I think they may have became overwhelmed, because I would think that if there is a law that's already in place, just like they were trying to do with the moratorium, some of the landlords were still trying to, evict the tenants, even though we were right in the middle. Some people will go over their authority and abuse it, and so it was just a lot that was going on. I tried to. I'm a law student as of now. I'm a law student. I kind of probably about years. Yeah, I'm a law student, and so this right here, and then some other things that have happened in my personal life through the courts and stuff, kind of just in all of these things that I read on social media and what have you. I just feel that it's kind of an unfair justice, and I said, now they shouldn't be doing this. You shouldn't be, if the law is right there for the offender. We're not here to judge what they have did, but they still have rights while they're incarcerated. And so my thing about that was, why would you send a legal document from the IRS back to the IRS when the president has already signed a bill or have given permission that the money belongs to them? It's theirs. It don't belong to the institution.
Absolutely.
And so that's, like I say, we're not, in some areas we're not caught up to the law, but that's a very, very good point. I'm going to go back to this group. It's probably got about, 40,000 people in it, and I'm going to let them know, and I'm going to post the podcast in there too, to also share with them. And I try to as well in a legal perspective is to be careful about my comments and what have you, because I explained to this one individual that everybody is not the same in every jurisdiction. The banks have their own different bylaws, and you can't force them to do anything and what have you. And so, they were some of the comments, they were telling the lady to cash the check and endorse it. And I'm like, lady, look, you cash this check, you're going to jail. Just leave it alone, and you'll have to go in there and perhaps maybe get you an attorney or try to see if you can be able to contact the institution to see if you can come up with a better resolution, than that. So that's the reason why we're having this discussion, because it has been an outdrawn thing that is going on with loved ones. Family members are looking for answers. They're going through so much of trying to get the rights of their loved ones, their sons, their children, and so and sometimes the attorneys, they, depending, you have to make sure that you have an attorney that's affiliated with that type of cause. You just don't go out and hire an attorney. You got to make sure that he or she is able to practice the complaint that that they perhaps maybe have. So we want to get to Advance Directives real quick. And so share with us a little bit about the meaning of an Advance Directive.
Well, this is my biggest passion, is the Advance Directive. I have helped care for 7 family members, not including my parents yet. And my mom is a doctor, and we've navigated that process together over many, many years with other family members too. And having an Advance Directive that is really robust is extremely rare out there. I honestly think we're the only firm that really focuses a lot of attention on this. And so when we need someone to make medical decisions, doesn't it make sense that all your wishes, as well as you can, are in the document, so that you are burdening that person a little bit less in terms of having to make really big decisions, because it's clear what your wishes are. And so, so for me, this is the most important document in an estate plan, and so we spend a lot of time on it. So essentially, it's similar to a power of attorney, and in some states, it's called a power of attorney for health care, and the other is the power of attorney for legal and finance. In California, we call it an Advance Directive. And so it is legally giving someone the authority to make medical decisions for you, all medical decisions. And it is the same, usually, once we turn 18, we need to do these, our kids need to do these, because you will have no legal right to make healthcare decisions for them without this. Now we have HIPAA, which is the federal privacy law, and also there's a state version in every state. So it's even more difficult, because doctors don't want to violate HIPAA. Now, they often do, but the penalties are pretty severe to do it. So if you're you get in a car accident somewhere and you don't have a relationship with that doctor in that hospital, they're probably not going to violate HIPAA. And so having this Advance Directive with you is really important. So in California, the Advance Directive is made up of 2 parts, and this is for every state that calls it an Advance Directive. It's the power of attorney part, who has the legal authority to make medical decisions for you, mixed with the living will part, which is what all your wishes are. And so I think because because all these terms are so difficult, power of attorney, living will, living trust, right? We just combine those together to say the Advance Directive is both the legal power and your wishes of that living will part. And so the same concepts apply, where it could be springing, meaning you need doctors to deem you incapacitated, or immediate. I say immediate across the board, because when you need help, you want your person, your agent, to be able to step in and help. We are finding more and more on our elder law side that doctors are not filling out the capacity declarations. We had one client who had to go to 3 different doctors to say whether, to deem mom to have capacity or not. And the final one, and she was calling them saying, this is what I need. I just need you to deem her to have capacity so that we can update a document, right? Mm-hmm. Third doctor, I just need this. And everyone said, okay. They went in, they waited 2 hours to see this doctor. And then in the end, the doctor said, oh, well, I'll do it if you give me $300 cash. I mean, that's unconscionable to me, right? But we are seeing more and more doctors not wanting to do it, and so this presents a huge burden for someone to be able to care for you. I mean, we had another situation where these were springing powers, and the son was, wanted to take care of mom, but the brother of the mother was really evil and had taken her and isolated her and wouldn't let anyone be near her. And because we couldn't get mom to go to the doctor because we didn't have access to mom, we couldn't deem her to have no capacity, so that son could come in with power of attorney for health and finance and get her out of that situation. And this guy was violent and threatening and had a gun, and I mean, it was a mess. And so I'm like, God, if it was just immediate, we would have so much power, but we don't in those situations. So having them be immediate is really important for your loved one to be able to just step right back in. But the powers are very broad. In California, the powers are very, very broad, but there are certain states that, because we each have our own laws, and so I was kind of looking up when I knew that I was going to be on today, I was looking up some examples in other states. And so in Massachusetts, and I had known this before from a colleague, in Massachusetts, they don't use an Advance Directive. You have to have a healthcare proxy. So they just have a totally different form, and they don't honor Advance Directives from other states, which is a problem. In Wisconsin, you have to specifically in the document, and each state can say what has to be enumerated in a document. In Wisconsin, it has to be specifically stated that you have the authority to deal with a feeding tube, right, to put one in or take one out, and also to place someone in a long-term care facility. And so it's very important that wherever you really live, you have an Advance Directive either looked at by a lawyer in that state to make sure it has what it needs, right, or that you fill out the statutory version so that you can at least make sure you're complying with the state law. But most of the time, these documents from state to state will work. There could be some minor exceptions.
Wow, that is, and it is confusing to a lot of individuals because they get it confused about the Advance Directives versus the power of attorney. So I'm going to share another real scenario with you that I saw today. And so is this loved one. And so, of course, their loved one had received their sentencing. And so this is behind the bars again. And so after 3 days after his sentence, he found out that he had aggressive colon cancer. And so the family on the outside is trying to, they gave him 2 years to live, and so I'm pretty sure has to be agitating to be able to go through all of this pain while you're incarcerated too. And so the family is trying to look for answers. That's another reason why I hit the podcast too. They're looking for answers as to what they can be able to do to get him released, because I know a lot of agencies, okay, like the Bureau of Prisons and the Department of Justice, you'll have to go to them and be able to present that you can be able to take care of this loved one. And so that's what came to mind while you were speaking about the Advance Directives. That's probably what they're going to need. They're probably going to need some sort of advance directive, so that, and of course all of these other suggestions came in, call the senator and stuff like that. I mean, just like I explained to the loved one, I said, once you call the senator, it's not going to do any good. This is something that you're going to have to do. You're going to have to, first of all, have some sort of authority over your loved one to be able to make these rights, and then also and sometimes the infirmaries in these institutions, it's nothing like it used to be, years ago. Some people will abide by the law, and some people will still break it. If you go in there and say, okay, I'm going to hire an attorney, they'll tell you in your face and stuff, bring them on. We don't care anything about an attorney or what have you and things. And so it's a very critical case. The individual, like I stated, only has 2 years to live. And so and the family is kind of livid at this point, because I guess, sometimes when people are going through the court system, they think that this is not going to ever happen or come up on them and what have you, whatever the issue may be. But then we're left to figure out the other answers, the power of attorney, the advance directives. These things are very, very important, and I try to continue to share with individuals that you get these things documented, get them legalized and what have you, and then find out what your state has to offer, because both of these entities, these legal documents, they vary from state to state as to their policies, their rules, their procedures and things. And so sometimes people will be giving out all types of advice, and they have no clue of what they're saying.
Absolutely. And so this goes back to what I said earlier, which is once we turn 18, we need these documents, right? And we need to update them regularly. Mm-hmm. And even if you just go onto your government, whether it's a big city, I can go to LA City, I can go to California, and the government websites, and I can find the Advance Directive, I can find the power of attorney, and it's free. You can just print it out, and you do need to get the power of attorney notarized. The Advance Directive may or may not, depending upon the form. The probate code doesn't require it to be notarized, but you can just do this for virtually nothing, and then at least have them in place, if something like this happens. I can only imagine, my heart just aches for these families. I can only imagine how much stress it is to not have access to your person, And I think COVID brought that to light for everybody on the outside, right? Because once your person was in the hospital, you had no access, right? And so it really brought this to the forefront of everyone realizing how important getting this done in advance is, so that you have the legal authority to talk to the people you need to talk to.
Absolutely. And so, of course, I'm not here to be the judge, jury, executioner. I'm not a counselor either.
Right.
I'm not a grievance counselor, what have you. But when you listen to other people's hearts, their issues, their problems, and I was just about to pull my hair out about a couple of months ago listening to this mother of sharing her situation about her son, and there was limited of things of what she could be able to do. You contact the media. That's not. That depends. That varies. It depends on how much information and facts that you have. Regardless to the situation, if they'll be able to come out and be able to hear that story or not. So, anyways, Rebecca,
and there are the only other resource I wanted to offer people. I know California has this, and I feel like every state has this to some extent, but I don't know for sure. Is that the state bar helps to fund these local clinics, right? So like my law partner managed the Compton Courthouse Legal Aid Clinic. So she helped people for free, right, and ran the team to help people for free. And so there are free legal aid resources out there where you could at least start there and not have to hire a lawyer, because lawyers are expensive, and you might just get some free advice. They're not going to go to court with you or anything like that, but they're going to tell you what the rules are.
Absolutely, absolutely, I agree. And so that's another, I think, platform that I kind of help individuals to be able to refer them to. They have them in most of your metropolitan cities, you know, in here. They have them in Memphis and perhaps in Nashville and Clarksville and things like that. And so they'll be able to be a starting point for individuals that are needing help, whether their loved ones are incarcerated or not, or maybe they're in a senior citizen facility or what have you, or they may be incapacitated at home. That still will be a start where they can be able to get the resources, because like I say, if you don't have all of your legal authorities in orders, a lot of times these banks and these other institutions, they'll rebut whatever that you have in your hand if it don't comply to their bylaws of what they have. So, that's just something, I kind of try to stress that more and more and more. And the more I continue to say it, I said, no, I think we need to do a podcast, and we need to be able to share it with individuals to be able to help them to understand the authority of a power of attorney, and they need to get this, not wait until I get in trouble or wait till I get sick. This is something that we need to have, advance directives in place early on, so if something comes up later on down the road, guess what? All I got to do is, and it has to be updated as to what you stated and stuff. That's something that I did not even know. I didn't know that.
Yes.
has to be updated, and so these things are very, very important. And so, and I'm just so thankful that you were here today to be able to share this, because I'm going to be able to help other individuals to be able to learn more and more about it. So, Rebecca, this is your time where you can be able to share with the audience, where they can be able to follow you after the show. They can be able to follow you if you have any links that you would like to share, any books that you have published. You can be able to share those links where they can be able to find and purchase them, or any social media sites that you would like to share, or any upcoming events or speaking engagements that you have with the public. You can be able to share that this time with the audience.
Absolutely. Well, first I just want to thank you so much for having me. And I have so much more information that I want. I have like a checklist in front of me, and I'm like, wait, I have so much more I want to share. So if there's any other way that I could even send you information and you could post it, there's such critical things that people don't know, and I'm really into empowering people through education. So I'm going to send you an email with a couple other points. So our website is www.goldfarblou.com. So my last name is Goldfarb, Gold like the color, F like Frank, ARB like boy, LUU, that's Din's last name, my law partner, .com. And all of our social media is on there. We're on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook and all of that. And so, I'm always happy to answer questions or give people resources, because I want people to be taken care of so much.
Absolutely. And I have the same type of initiative as well, and that's kind of what compelled me to be able to get this out, this information, this power of attorney, and the advance directives, because individuals do not know. The information does vary from state to state, and then we, not they or them, but all of us, we have to make sure that these things are done early on, and then also making sure that they are updated. So I think that's where the little controversial comments may come in sometimes, is that the people don't know. They think they know. There's something that happened 20 or 30 years ago. They don't have no idea. So, of course, you are welcome to be able to share the links with us, and we, of course, is going to be able to share it with others, so they can be able to understand their authority and their rights, and they can be able to go to the appropriate places in order for them to be able to seek legal action, or they can be able to come, because I'm going to share your link as well on social media too, and they can be able to contact your office, because some people do have financial means where they can be able to fight cases that way as well. Financially, some people don't mind telling you, "Oh, I got the money."
Yeah.
So they don't mind telling you, "We got the money." That's what this one lady was telling me. She said, "We got the money," and she went in there, and I think I was referring her to someone else, and she went right in there and paid the down payment on it. I think it was like $3,000. I said, "Well, oh, excuse me,
yeah.
okay." So
yeah,
again,
yeah.
Some people, they have it. So once again, Rebecca, thank you so much for being our guest on today. And, of course, we're going to stay in connection with you so you can be able to continue
Absolutely.
to impact other individuals through your services that you provide, okay?
Thank you so much. I'm so happy. Thank you for doing this for everybody.
You're welcome. Everyone have a great day.
Bye-bye.